You're listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
All right, folks, welcome back for our second segment of the day of The Rock is On. I just previewed the Eastern Conference, or made my Eastern Conference, my playoff predictions for the Eastern Conference. Excuse me. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the Western Conference, and at the end, I will give my NBA Finals prediction. So stay tuned for that. But with that being said, let's dive right into the Western Conference. For the one seed, Western Conference, I'm I'm not going to be on the bandwagon. I just go by the lineup and what they and how these players play. It's going to take a while though. I don't think they're going to be as good as last year's improbable run, but with the number 1 seed, I'm going to say that the Golden State Warriors will be the 1 seed. And listen, they have a great starting lineup. They got with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and of course the highly priced free agent that everyone tried to, the coveted free agent that everybody tried to get this past summer, and Kevin Durant, and then a role player, if you will, in Zaza Pachulia. But they could just go small, put Draymond at the put Draymond at center, put Draymond Green at center, move Durant at small forward, and put Iguodala at the power forward, and that could be their starting lineup. They go small, but the Warriors in the last 2 years or so, when going with the smaller lineup, have been more productive, have been more dominant in the league. Now because they have this superstar lineup, I'm not going to say that the Warriors are going to have like the same run or the same record as last year. Because last year they were 73-9, best regular season record in NBA history. But I don't think they're going to get to 73 wins this year. I can see them going 60, somewhere between 60, 66 wins at best, because they lost a lot of key players though. Harrison Barnes even though he was a key player, even though he didn't really do a whole lot, but he helped that team get to 73 wins. Andrew Bogut, not so much as a scorer, but defensively he helped the Warriors the last 2 years. And also the Warriors had a good bench last year, and they lost some of their bench players via free agency. So this Warriors team is not going to be the same as last year, obviously, but I think they're still going to be dominant. They're still going to be a title contending team this year. And you can't deny that. They have a great starting five. Phenomenal starting five. Now, my second pick, or the second seed I project to be, is the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the Spurs, this is pretty much where they are. They're always going to be They're always going to finish top 3, barring some catastrophic injury. But it's going to be an interesting year to see how the Spurs are going to play without Tim Duncan, who retired in the offseason or over the summer. And in my opinion, Tim Duncan's probably the greatest power forward in the history of basketball, in the history of the NBA. But with the Spurs, what they have accomplished over the last decade and a half, they're a no-nonsense team. They play hard, they play well, and they just do their job. Quoting Bill Belichick now. But they just do their job. Greg Popovich, the head coach, expects a lot from this team. He knows what to expect from his players. He puts them in good situations to thrive and do well in. And the Spurs are always going to be competitive. They're always going to be in a run for a title every single year, because that's who the Spurs are. They're a great well-run organization, great ownership, great head coach, and great players, championship players that knows what it takes to win, and they know what sacrifices to make to win the championship, or to get to a championship and win it. And they're going to have Tony Parker. Granted, he's up there in age, but he's still doing well. They're going to have Kawhi Leonard. They have Patty Mills, who's a lethal 3-point shooter, and they're also going to have Pau Gasol, who has that NBA Finals experience, NBA playoff experience. And like I said, the Spurs just know what it takes to win, and don't be surprised if they finish in the top 3 this year. And who knows, they can probably go for the 1 seed as well, and maybe knock off Golden State in the playoffs. You never know. With the third seed now, I am going with the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Clippers, they have a great team. They're always going to be competitive, but they're just one of those teams that just never get over the hump. They never make it past the semifinals, never even made it to a conference finals. Not since Doc Rivers took over, and not since their history, or never in the history of their franchise have the Clippers made it to the conference finals, let alone the NBA finals. But could that change this year? Hey, you never know. But when you have a lineup that consists of Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, one of the top 5 point guards in the game, Jamal Crawford, up there in age but can still shoot the three ball. You have J.J. Redick, Austin Rivers, and then DeAndre Jordan can play defense, not so much a scorer. And then you have Paul Pierce coming off the bench, who this is his last season, by the way, before he retires. You got to be in the running for a championship, and you have to be at least a top 3 team. And who knows? Maybe with with Paul Pierce's with this being Paul Pierce's last year, that can maybe inspire the Clippers, maybe help them get over that hump, get to the NBA Finals, and maybe win that elusive title for this, for this franchise for historically has been pretty bad. They have had success over the last 5-6 years, but historically the Los Angeles Clippers have been an absolute joke. And if they win a championship, all that futility and all those terrible teams and terrible players and losing seasons will be in the rearview mirror. It will kind of be like an analogous of when the Saints won the Super Bowl. Different sport, but the Saints had a lot of bad seasons, a lot of terrible players, a lot of losing seasons. They win a Super Bowl, and it's like all that garbage about them not being able to win it just goes out the window. So who knows? Maybe that Paul Pierce's final season, or with it being Paul Pierce's final season, that can help propel the Clippers to the next level. All right, for the 4th seed now, I'm going with the Portland Trailblazers. Trailblazers usually finish 4-5 seed, the 4th or 5th seed. That's pretty accurate for them. And they have one of the best point guards in the league in Damian Lillard, and they have C.J. McCollum. And Lillard, what he did last year was just phenomenal. Because you got to look at it this way: he lost 4. He was the only starter prior to the start of last year. He was the only starter from the 2014-2015 season. He lost Robin Lopez. He lost LaMarcus Aldridge. He lost Wesley Matthews, and he lost Nicholas Batum. He lost 4 of his starters. And the fact that he had to play with 4 different players last year got them to a top 4, top 5 seed, or were one of the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, and made it to the semifinals. That's pretty remarkable. And that just shows you how great and how dominant Damian Lillard is, and how he's emerging as a leader and even a role model for the kids, and for the players, for the kids that admire him in Portland and NBA fans, and for the players as well. He is emerging as a leader, and also he's got great dexterity as well. No denying that. All right. Now, for the 5th seed, this may be a little bit of a shocker though, but for the 5th seed, and some people may not agree with me, but for the 5th seed, I'm going with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I really like what the Timberwolves have done. They have a great starting lineup, an emerging lineup with Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Zach LaVine, and their point guard Ricky Rubio. And also, they have a great head coach in Tom Thibodeau, who's not only the head coach, but he's the team president as well. So he's making all the basketball decisions, who to get, who to trade for, etc., etc. And I'll throw in one more thing. I think the Timberwolves will win one round, and they'll make it to the semifinals. That's how lofty my expectations are for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I think they're on the run. Excuse me, they're on the rise. They're going to be competitive for years to come, and they have a core nucleus and great players, emerging players who are going to be good and going to play well in this league for many years to come. And I think some people get carried away because I hear some reports or some murmurs that they're comparing that the Timberwolves are going to be the second coming of the Golden State Warriors. I'm not saying they are. I'm not going to say they're a championship caliber team this year, but it's safe to say they could be a playoff team this year. You know, when you get that playoff, and when they get that playoff experience, then you can say, okay, and they add a key piece here and there, then you can say, okay, now they're a championship caliber team, and they're a force to be reckoned with. Now, as for the 6th seed, I'm going with my favorite team, the Houston Rockets, and I think they should improve from last year because last year they were the 8th seed. They had a major drop-off. They went from being the 2 seed to the 8th seed. Got lost in the first round to the Warriors last year. Year before, lost to the Warriors, but in the conference finals. So they had a major drop-off. But I think this year there's going to be some improvement for the Rockets. Because you have James Harden, who's a leading scorer, and he gets criticized, and I know he gets criticized for his defense, but I'm sure as a fan, I'm sure he's going to improve on that. James Harden will be better defensively. And also they have Trevor Ariza and McDaniels, 2 guys who can shoot the 3 ball, can score in the paint. You know, and they have Ariza, who has playoff experience. He can be there. He can be an asset for the Rockets, though, and he's been there the last 2-3 years. And also they also have an experienced coach in Mike D'Antoni. Now, granted, Mike D'Antoni's system is a hit or miss because he runs the fast break. So if his teams usually score 120 points, but also they score a lot of points, averaging say about 120. But then they also give up a lot of points as well, which is around 115, 120. It's a hit or miss. Sometimes the fast break works and goes in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. But D'Antoni has that playoff experience. He was at one point one of the most respected coaches in the league. There's no denying that. And I think he's going to help this Rocket team play well. And also, they ran the Rockets last year. They were a fast break. They were an opponent high scoring offensive team. So this year shouldn't be any more different with D'Antoni's system. And there was also a lot of scrutiny last year with Dwight Howard and then the firing of Kevin McHale, which I thought was unfair because you can't just fire a guy after he just led you to the Western Conference Finals. You know, but that just shows you that NBA coaches have a short leash. With that, I am now moving on to the 7th seed, and I'm going with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I know Kevin Durant left. He was the guy in OKC. But now this is Russell Westbrook's team. And he's going to have to carry this team and put this team on his back if they want to even sniff the playoffs. Because when KD was there, they were a championship caliber team. You know, and he and Westbrook were one of the best 1-2 punches in the game. And we know, and we've seen what Westbrook has done without Durant. He's a triple-double machine, dominant scorer. Drive to the lane, drive to the hoop, not afraid of contact. But it's going to be a little, and he did that for a stretch. I think it was about maybe 15, 20 games last year when KD was hurt. But it's going to be difficult this year in terms of leading the team and doing that for an entire season. Because you figure if you're constantly putting a team on your back and you have to score 30 points a game just to keep them in the game and have a chance to win, it's going to take a tear on you come postseason time. But I like Westbrook. He's one of the best point guards in the game, and I think he's going to lead this team to the playoffs. It's not going to be a high seed. It's going to be a low seed. I figured the 7th seed is an appropriate position for them based on how their team is and who they lost in the offseason. So I'm going with the Oklahoma City Thunder as the 7th seed. Now, for the 8th seed for the Western Conference, I'm going with the Utah Jazz. Now, the 8th seed, I know it's pretty much a flip of a coin. You can pick any. There's some other teams that can be there. You can throw in the Kings in there. Even though they haven't been that consistent the last few years. You can throw in the Nuggets. You can throw in maybe even the Lakers if they can go on a run. But or even the Pelicans because they have one of the top players in Anthony Davis. But I'm gonna go with the Utah Jazz because this team, they had Gordon Hayward, Shelvin Mack, and other players who played pretty well last year. And also remember, they were competing for the 8th seed up until the final day of the regular season. They finished in the 9th seed, didn't miss the playoffs. So I think they have a good core group of guys as well. And also, I think the accusation of Joe Johnson will propel this team to make the playoffs and take them to the next level. They're not a championship team, but they're not good enough to be a championship team, but I think they will be good enough to be a playoff team. So I'm going with the Utah Jazz as the 8th seed. Now, for the final moment we have all been waiting for. My NBA Finals prediction. Now I can stand up here and say, Cavaliers and Warriors for a third straight year. Okay. I mean, granted the Cavs are the best team in the East. They have the best player in the world, in the league, and probably in the world. And then the Warriors, with the accusation of Kevin Durant, and with Stephen Curry and with a phenomenal backcourt and Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, you have to like their chances. But I'm gonna shock some people here. I really am with my prediction. And with my prediction, I am going to go with. I'll start off with the one that's not surprising, and then I'll get into the surprising one. For the representing who I think is going to be in the NBA Finals from the Western Conference will be the Golden State Warriors. Some can say the Spurs, some could say the Clippers. It's really a 3-team race in the West. But in the East, I'm not going to pick the Cavs. As crazy as it may sound, I am not picking the Cavs. I'm going in the Eastern Conference. The team from the Eastern Conference that will go to the NBA Finals this year will be the Indiana Pacers. So there you have it. I'm going with Warriors Pacers NBA Finals, and I think the Pacers are going to win it. I really think this Pacers team is that good. Because if you listen to my last segment, they have a great backcourt. They have a great backcourt in Monte Ellis and Jeff Teague, and then you have Paul George, who's a dominant scorer, and solid role players in Miles Turner and Thaddeus Young. And also, the reason why I picked the Pacers to go to the NBA Finals and even win it this year is because they have a great bench. Their bench players are starters. Literally. I said the bench players are starters. You have Aaron Brooks, C.J. Miles, Al Jefferson, and Rodney Stuckey. Come on, you have to be in consideration for winning a championship or making it to the NBA Finals. You have to be. And I think last year for the Cavs, they put a lot of effort into it because they were down 3-1, came back and won the championship, had that whole big victory parade. You know, there was major headlines, the city of Cleveland winning their championship for the first, or a team from Cleveland winning a championship for the first time in 52 years. I think the Cavs may not have the will. Or they may lose. I guess you can say they may not have the will, the same desire, and may not be as hungry this year as they were last year, coming off a finals defeat, or at the beginning of last year. And I think the Pacers, this team is this Pacer team. You saw what they did in the playoffs. Even though it was a losing effort, they were a seventh seed. They took the Toronto Raptors in 7. The Raptors had to beat them in 7 games, and they played well in that 7th game. Despite a losing effort, the Indiana Pacers played well in the 7th game that they came up short in. And they were the 7th seed, and usually when those two, if in years of watching the NBA playoffs, the 2-7 matchup doesn't go that far. It doesn't really go into 7 games. Maybe it goes into 5 games at best, but usually the 7th seed rarely wins or rarely beats a 2. I think that's only happened twice in the history of the NBA playoffs. 1991 with the Golden State Warriors over the San Antonio Spurs, and 2010 the San Antonio Spurs over the Dallas Mavericks. But if you think about it, the fact that a 7th seed took the 2 seed, or it took the 2 seed 7 games to defeat the 7th seed, just shows you how good that 7th seed was, and that Pacer team was good, and I think they're going to be even better this year. And there you have it, folks. My NBA, my playoff predictions, not playoff preview, but my NBA projections for the 2016-2017 season. And with that, that concludes this basketball segment of The Rock is On.